Troisièmement, les études exclues lors de la phase d'éligibilité ne sont pas suffisamment détaillées. Et quatrièmement, les risques de biais, donc les biais de sélection, les biais de détection, ne sont pas évalués dans la majorité des revues. Bien sûr, enfin, l'examen ou bien l'absence d'examen du billet de publication suggère une possible surestimation des bénéfices de l'IA. Alors, concernant la troisième question de recherche portant sur l'usage pédagogique de ChatGPT, eh bien, on a identifié, d'après l'analyse thématique, on a identifié 5 types d'usages pédagogiques dans les revues systématiques. Pardon? Donc, l'usage le plus largement cité est l'aide à la rédaction et à la recherche. Alors, là, il vient ensuite à part, on va dire, quasi égale, la conception des ressources pédagogiques, donc la conception des plans de cours, des exercices adaptés, et le tutorat virtuel, les enjeux éthiques et la littératie numérique, donc qui occupent une place importante dans la littérature, et enfin l'évaluation et le feedback automatisé qui reste, on va dire, même si donc il est représenté, mais il est moins représenté par rapport aux autres thématiques, ce qui indique qu'il demeure encore sous-exploré dans la littérature. Alors, concernant la première thématique, aide à la rédaction ou bien à la recherche, l'IA ou bien ChatGPT en particulier facilite la génération d'idées, la synthèse bibliographique, la correction stylistique, avec toutefois un risque d'hallucination à surveiller. Deuxièmement, la conception des ressources pédagogiques, il permet aux enseignants de créer des exercices, des plans de cours et des scénarios qui sont adaptés aux besoins des apprenants. Alors, troisièmement, la thématique tutorat virtuel. Là, on indique que on a donc un tutorat disponible 24 sur 24 hors des heures de cours. Et ChatGPT, c'est un outil qui offre un feedback immédiat et personnalisé, mais expose à un risque de dépendance cognitive. Alors, quatrièmement, les enjeux éthiques et la littératie numérique. Alors, son intégration, bien sûr, exige de former des apprenants à un usage, on va dire, critique et responsable face au risque de plagiat, de biais et de désinformation. Alors, dernière catégorie, ChatGPT, quant à l'évaluation, il réduit la charge de travail des enseignants en générant des évaluations adaptées sous réserve bien sûr d'un encadrement, on va dire, rigoureux. Alors ces résultats nous amènent à discuter 4 points essentiels, à envisager, bien sûr, il faut envisager des perspectives pour les recherches futures. Premièrement, la transformation du rôle de l'enseignant, en automatisant certaines tâches répétitives, par exemple la correction des copies, la génération des exercices, la planification, eh bien ChatGPT, il libère l'enseignant pour qu'il se concentre sur l'essentiel. Par exemple, en se focalisant sur le développement de la pensée critique, de la créativité des apprenants, mais l'enseignant, là, son rôle, on peut le considérer comme un facilitateur, non un transmetteur d'informations, ce qui va avec les théories d'apprentissage constructivistes et socio-constructivistes. Alors, deuxièmement, parlons de l'alignement technopédagogique dans le sens proposé par Lebrun, donc basé sur les travaux de Bix concernant l'alignement pédagogique. Eh bien, l'intégration de ChatGPT ne peut être efficace que s'il respecte un alignement cohérent entre les objectifs pédagogiques, les méthodes pédagogiques et bien sûr les outils numériques. C'est ce que nous amène à penser aussi à bien sûr intégrer d'autres cadres théoriques pour explorer davantage ce domaine-là, qui est le modèle TEPAC. Troisièmement, donc, comme nous avons donc déjà constaté, la majorité des revues présentent un niveau de confiance faible. Alors, je parle ici de revues de littérature systématique. Donc, il existe, à mon avis, donc il existe un besoin urgent d'enregistrer les protocoles de recherche, par exemple dans les plateformes Prospero ou bien OSF, pour renforcer la reproductibilité des futures études. Bien sûr, pour avoir de la transparence aussi dans les résultats de recherche. Et enfin, comme perspective de recherche, 3 pistes s'ouvrent: élargir le corpus au chapitre d'ouvrage. Donc, il faut inclure des chapitres d'ouvrage. Il faut inclure aussi les actes de conférence, les thèses de doctorat pour, bien sûr, analyser en profondeur la recherche ou bien les revues de littérature systématique publiées dans ce domaine. Et il faut explorer aussi davantage les autres IA. Donc, il n'y a pas que ChatGPT. Donc, on peut voir aussi NotebookLM, on peut voir Claude, on peut voir, par exemple, Manus, etc. Donc, pour mener des études d'impact, bien sûr, sur les apprentissages. Alors, pour conclure, cette revue de littérature systématique de type revue parapluie met en évidence 4 principaux constat. Donc, depuis 2022, on observe une croissance rapide des publications, avec une dominance des revues systématiques. Sur le plan méthodologique, la majorité des revues présentent une fragilité notable, appelant davantage à faire donc des recherches de rigueur dans les futures recherches. 5 usages pédagogiques ont été identifiés: rédaction, conception, tutorat, éthique et évaluation. Enfin, cette étude rappelle que ChatGPT doit être considéré comme un outil d'appui intégré dans un cadre techno-pédagogique cohérent, tout en faisant appel au cadre théorique, à savoir le modèle TPAC, avec une supervision humaine indispensable. Par les références. Et merci de votre attention. Sinon, il y a Transforme l'éducation, mais c'est à nous de l'intégrer intelligemment. Merci. Est-ce que vous m'entendez? Parce que je ne vous entends pas.
Et maintenant?
Maintenant, c'est très bien. Non, ça marche pas. Je n'entends pas la modératrice. Non, non, toujours. J'ai entendu la personne qui vient de parler tout à l'heure, mais la modératrice, non. Non, pas
On n'a
toujours,
que
toujours.
d'autres questions.
Donc sinon, oui,
La
maintenant,
liste, la
oui,
première liste. D'accord,
maintenant, oui.
d'accord. Merci.
Oui.
Alors, tout d'abord, je tiens à remercier les participants et également ceux qui ont présenté le fruit de leur investigation autour de la question. Alors, en fait, moi j'ai deux questions. L'une qui s'adresse à Monsieur Malki et bien évidemment une deuxième pour Madame Mraoui. Alors, pour la question de Monsieur Malki, alors, vous avez mis la main sur un point crucial qu'est l'évaluation, bien évidemment, qui doit, à mon sens, porter de nouvelles lunettes pour pouvoir examiner cet usage, usage estudiantin de l'intelligence artificielle, qui interroge en profondeur cette subjectivité distribuée, comme vous l'avez si bien mentionné. Alors, quand les opérations interprétatives qui donnent le sens, donnent sens plutôt, sont externalisées à travers un agent génératif, et à force de répéter cette opération, peut-on vraiment parler de co-construction? La question, à mon sens, du dosage de cette subjectivité distribuée se pose avec acuité. Donc, du coup, on est en train de perdre cette subjectivité au profit d'une dominance. Il y a la question du dosage qui se pose, de dominance de la générativité algorithmique. Et donc, du coup, est-ce que vous avez pris en considération ce processus de déclin du sujet dans la création du sens? Maintenant, je passe à la deuxième question. Je m'adresse à Madame Mraoui. Je vous remercie également pour les résultats présentés. Mais moi, j'ai un petit souci concernant le rapprochement que vous faites avec le plagiat. Tout à l'heure, on a vu qu'il faudrait reconsidérer notre façon de voir les choses en tant qu'enseignant, donc cette attitude de vouloir chasser à tout prix la tricherie, normalement, dans un processus de régulation, doit disparaître pour tirer profit. Alors, peut-on également parler de plagiat dans sa définition classique, c'est-à-dire l'attribution à soi des propos de quelqu'un d'autre? Et donc, dans cet usage, bien évidemment, dans l'usage au quotidien de l'intelligence artificielle générative, qui donne naissance généralement à des textes inédits. Donc, c'est là le paradoxe. Le plagiat, c'est s'attribuer le fruit d'une réflexion de quelqu'un d'autre. L'intelligence générative, à travers le prompting, il y a toute une ingénierie du prompt qui est mise en place, et là, j'adhère à l'idée de construction aussi partiellement. À travers le prompt, on génère un texte inédit. C'est-à-dire qu'on ne revoit à aucune instance créatrice. Je crois qu'il faudrait opérer des reconsidérations de ces lunettes qui nous permettent de voir autrement la question évaluative, au lieu de taxer l'usage de l'intelligence artificielle générative comme étant du plagiat. Voilà, c'est ma petite remarque, et je ne sais pas ce que vous en pensez. Merci.
Donc, je passe la parole à professeur.
Merci, Monsieur Azimani, pour votre question qui me semble pertinente et profonde. Et c'est le genre de questions qu'on doit poser à l'intelligence artificielle pour avoir de des réponses qui sont plus profondes parce que quand les prompts sont mal alignés, les réponses de l'intelligence artificielle sont encore aussi mal alignées. Alors, dans ma communication n'est pas dans le sens de diviniser le sujet dans le sens phénoménologique comme instance innocente, ni de diaboliser la machine, l'intelligence artificielle, mais elle est dans le sens de proposer quelques critères pour viser l'équité, l'intégrité l'intégrité académique. Alors, je me suis parti d'un constat, bien sûr, basé sur une étude et une analyse d'un corpus que vont être publiés dans les jours qui suivent. Alors, puisque bien sûr, le constat, c'est qu'il y a une subjectivité qui est distribuée entre un sujet qui est phénoménologique, le sujet corps, chair et corps, et la machine. Alors, cela implique et entraîne un processus qui est aussi distribué entre la machine et quand, par exemple, on pose une question à la machine, elle répond, par exemple. On peut ajouter une autre question. Alors, qu'est-ce qu'elle va faire? Elle va enrichir la synthèse, ou bien le résumé, ou bien le devoir, ou bien n'importe quoi. Alors, cela pose un autre problème, c'est que est-ce qu'on va garder les mêmes critères de l'évaluation, les mêmes critères qui se basent qui sont centrés, qui sont, si vous voulez, anthropocentrés, c'est-à-dire qui se basent sur le sujet, qui repose sur l'originalité, l'authenticité, la subjectivité. Alors non, on doit repenser cette évaluation pour donner, pour savoir quelles sont les contributions, la part de l'être humain et la part de l'intelligence artificielle. C'est ça c'est ça mon point de vue, c'est de reconfigurer. Si l'énonciation est reconfigurée, on doit reconfigurer aussi l'évaluation. Et merci pour votre question.
La deuxième question est destinée à Madame Raoui, c'est ça? Donc je vous passe la parole. Oui, justement.
Oui, alors je suis parfaitement d'accord avec vous concernant la reconsidération des modalités d'évaluation en prenant en considération cette subjectivité distribuée. Ma question était sur l'effet de substitution que génère cet usage. Alors, doit-on, est-ce que vous l'avez pris en considération, c'est-à-dire cet effet de substitution qui, après usage, augmente la partie des algorithmes par rapport à la partie humaine.
De la responsabilité dans le cas de la subjectivité distribuée. Alors, la responsabilité, elle existe, on ne peut pas l'abandonner, elle est là, mais elle est partagée avec la machine. Alors on doit prendre en considération les deux contributions, la contribution de l'être humain et la contribution de la machine. Et merci.
Je passe la parole à Madame Raoui pour qu'elle réponde aux questions posées.
Alors, merci beaucoup, Monsieur Zimani, pour vos précieuses remarques. Et enfin, en fait, je trouve que la définition que j'ai déjà donnée du plagiat, la définition classique, c'est le fait de s'approprier les idées ou bien les mots ou bien donc le contenu d'autrui et ne pas citer la source originale. Donc, elle est toujours, je trouve qu'elle est toujours, en fait, elle est valide. ou bien valable même pour l'usage dans le cadre avec les outils d'intelligence artificielle. Certes, il ne faut pas toujours adopter cette attitude de chasser la tricherie ou bien de sanctionner le plagiat, mais il faut toujours utiliser ces outils d'intelligence artificielle de manière responsable. Donc, parce que en fait, pour la définition qu'on a déjà citée, alors certes, donc en utilisant ces outils d'intelligence artificielle, on s'approprie les propos peut-être d'autrui. On risque de commettre du plagiat indirect parce que ils sont entraînés, ces agents sont entraînés, donc ils peuvent générer du texte qui existe déjà. Donc il y avait des recherches qui étaient menées, donc ils ont trouvé que certains passages ou bien certaines expressions sont vraiment copiées et collées. D'accord, elles existent dans des sites comme Wikipédia. Donc on risque toujours de commettre du plagiat indirect en utilisant ces outils. Donc j'espère avoir répondu à votre question.
Donc merci à vous toutes et à vous tous. Au nom du comité d'organisation, une petite question parce que le comité d'organisation incite sur la clôture. D'accord, juste une minute. Donc veuillez
excusez-moi,
passer.
il y a une personne avant. Ouais.
Voilà, donc je m'excuse au nom du comité d'organisation. Je déclare la fermeture de la session. D'accord.
Recording stopped.
معليش متأخرش. فرنسي هاوزن.
Recording in progress.
يوسف شملالي. يوسف شملالي. أيوة دادي ما عرفتي. إبراهيم علالي and أسماء ليمي. 30 minutes. Yeah, for each one of them. غادي نمشيو اوكي نمشيو هذه حاجه هذا لو 2 هذا لو 3
D'accord, c'était donc moi le 4.
انت لو 4 بدي نفعل لو 4
Oui, d'accord.
نبدا صافي بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على أشرف خلق الله. Now, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. My name is Ahmed Mansour. It's my pleasure to welcome you to session number 2, day 2 of the 13th edition of the International Conference on Digital Technology University, Rethinking Resource Accessibility and Skills Assessment. Now, today's session addresses a highly relevant and evolving topic, which is an extension of what we have been doing since the first day of this international conference: the role of generative artificial intelligence in education. However, this session will focus more on specific cross-disciplinary issues. Our discussions will span a range of perspectives, including ethical considerations, cognitive implications, equity issues, and innovative pedagogical applications. And not to forget, specialized learning for students with special needs. We will start with a keynote presentation, followed by a series of research communications or presentations that further explore these themes from both theoretical and applied angles. Now, allow me to introduce our keynote speaker, Janice Mark from Arizona State University. Janice is an assistant director and clinical assistant professor. She also leads the lab for advancing human-centered technology futures. Her presentation is entitled Navigating the Landscape of Generative Artificial Intelligence in Higher Education Through the Lens of Principled Innovation. Now, without further ado, Janice, please, the virtual floor is for you.
Thank you so much for the introduction, and thank you for having me. All right, let me share my slides. Okay. All right, so, all right. My presentation today will have three parts. I'll start with where we are now, and then I'll move on to what we're learning, and then I'll move on to moving forward. Where do we go from here? So with where are we now? So we are in a very jagged technological landscape. So everywhere new things are emerging. We're not really sure we can take a step. It could be uphill, it could be downhill. We're still learning the limitations, the challenges, the potentials, the tensions. We're still navigating this landscape of Gen AI. There's a lot of things we do know, and there's a lot of things that we are still learning. Because the AI technology is really like the car revolution. It's an arrival technology. It's impacting everyone. We didn't ask for it. It's in our classrooms. It's in our homes. It's in our society. It's really like the car revolution. If we think about where we've come from then and now, in the past, 2011, if we think about that, the average time on the cell phone was 32 minutes. In 2025, the average amount of time people spent on their cell phone was 4 hours and 39 minutes. We're just increasingly connected, of course, digitally. You think about AI, medical, gene technology, autonomous transportation, robotics, augmented reality. All of this is coming together at this moment. And now we have Gen AI. And, we see the test scores of AI systems on various capabilities relative to human performance. Human performance is here, set to 0. And we can see these lines here, right? We've got reading comprehension, image recognition, language understanding, a lot of this one, predictive reasoning. All of these things are, makes you think, right? Makes you look at it and makes you wonder what is going to happen next, right? So just all these changes are coming very, very quickly. And we can see this was 1998. This was the year 2020, and this is 2023. And so I imagine now, 2026, where are we now? If we were to extend this graph. So some of the questions we can consider is, what are the greatest opportunities? And what are some of the greatest concerns around generative AI, particularly as we're in higher education and dealing with teaching and learning? So let's think about what we're learning. What's the research showing us? So there's been a lot of research. Some of the research has been done around the accumulation of cognitive debt. Thinking about pedagogical biases, this was a study on they collected lesson plan generators from teachers that used it for AI, generated lessons using AI, and they found that they were, of course, not surprisingly, the lesson plans were using outdated pedagogy because the lesson plans themselves that's the way they were online, and they were just drawing from the data that is online. What our brains need, why our brains need knowledge in an age of Gen AI, just thinking about that. The more we offload knowledge to external aids, the less we exercise, because learning always requires some sort of productive struggle. Thinking about cognitive offloading and how that's impacting our creative thinking, critical thinking. But really it comes down to this, right? That there is, coming back to the jagged technological frontier, there's always going to be limitations of the tools, and those limitations will vary depending on the context. There's always going to be opportunities of the tool, and our job is to find out where those opportunities are and in what context, and apply it in the right context. And there's always going to be concerns in various contexts. So something that might be useful for teaching and learning may not be the best for use by doctors in the medical field, right? So we need to be thinking always more nuanced. And then, of course, there's this study from MIT on the brain on ChatGPT, thinking about raising these questions. What are the cognitive impacts? What are the practical impacts? What are those impacts for whom? Our moderator mentioned students with disabilities. How about all learners? In which modalities? And with what dosage? So is 5 minutes, 30 minutes? What is the most impactful? Is it most impactful when we integrate Gen AI at the beginning, at the middle, at the end? When we use it for formative assessment? When we use it for formative experiences? So all of these questions are things we need to be asking as we are the designers and curators of learning experiences for our students. At ASU, our approach has really been to put Gen AI out into the community while keeping to our ethical values, which means we have an AI sandbox that is within a walled garden. That means our data does not leave. Everything is within secured and data is kept safe. And so our ASU designed that because they believe that we have a community of faculty and staff that can try, experiment these tools. And so right now what we're designing is what's called a learning design suite. And I'll just show you a little piece of it. So we have been designing and putting out tools that are purpose-built AI experiences. They have been tested. They have been grounded in our academic standards. They are creating high-quality learning experiences, and they are improving student success. So we're doing research using these tools. So these are tools that have been designed by and for our faculty and students. So we have tools like Syllabot. They are all research-based. They all are learning-focused. They're guided by us. And so we have things like an AI transcription tool, discussion prompt generator, learning objectives creator, language buddy, help students practice conversation skills. We have a Requesta to generate assessment questions, Syllabot, syllabus helper to help faculty create syllabus. So we are working to expand this library of tools and things that are developed in, by, and for our community. So it's that is one way to really think about how can we use Gen AI in ways for teaching and learning in higher ed that are safe, that are ethical, that are going to really help our community move forward. So, all right. So thinking about what this might mean for your work, these are some questions that we can all think about. How can we decide whether, when, and how to use Gen AI in our classroom? How will we handle it if LLMs generate content that may be inaccurate or harmful? How might we use these as teachable moments about Gen AI? How might students' use of Gen AI help us rethink our goals and methods for assessing learning? So for example, if I'm teaching computer science, this is a big thing in computer science. Everybody's rethinking, how do we assess student learning? So in the U.S., we have a lot of faculty going back to, paper and pencil because right now, as we all know, it's just been a big concern around how do we know what students know. And so with vibe coding, what does teaching computer science look like? Just, where we are all dealing with this question right now. And how do we know that students understand the concepts and knowledge and practice? So the other questions that we can think about is what types of pedagogies might Gen AI produce when used in education? But it's always really important to think and really, really remember that we need to think about that AI is applied to our human systems. So if something is broken or unequal in our human system, it's a socio-technical system. So we have to remember that AI is layered on top of everything that we're already doing. And we need to remember that. It will only amplify the inequities, but we need to remember to build those equitable systems. So moving forward, what does that look like for us? One approach is to center principled innovation. So principled innovation is the ability to imagine new concepts, to catalyze ideas, to form new solutions, and guided by principles that create positive change for humanity. So I really believe this is one of Arizona State University's design aspirations, meaning whatever we create, whatever we do, whatever we make, however we innovate, we aspire to do this guided by positive change. So we ask ourselves the question, just because we can do something, should we be doing it? Now the power of creating technology, creating tools, it's so easy. Anybody can create an image, anybody can create a video, anybody can create a website so quickly in seconds. But just because we can do all of that, should we? And so really being intentional in how and why we design our things, our tools, our experiences, how and why we integrate things into teaching and learning will help us become more critical consumers. So this is more detail on principled innovation. There's 4 domains: the moral, the civic, the performance, and the intellectual domain. So it helps guide us to think about the consequences of our action. What perspective should we be taking? What data and resources and learning are supporting our decision? And so really thinking about how do we navigate these times of uncertainty with courage, with resilience? How do we ensure that we're combining creativity, evidence, and critical thinking? All of these things are really important. And now more than ever before, it's really important to have opportunities like this to support collaboration, to learn from one another, and really approaching these things with integrity and justice. So again, really thinking about how we recognize the limits so we can better understand and tackle the complex issues. Remembering that generative AI is part of machine learning and deep learning, and AI is not just generative AI. There's much more to AI than just Gen AI, and it all sits within computer science. So, for some time now, there's been a group doing some work in education. And this work is directed for K-12, but I think it's also relevant beyond K-12, which is there's 5 big ideas in Gen AI. And so there's the perception, so there's the object to human, there's the representation and reasoning, learning, how these systems are always learning from data, natural interactions, and then so the intelligent agents require many kinds of knowledge to interact. And, there's the knowledge, human interaction, and then the societal impact. So it can impact society in both positive and negative ways. So that's just one way to think about the Gen AI. And this is some other work that's been done recently around asking the question on what are AI learning priorities for all K-12 students? So really thinking about what is foundational AI, because going back to what I said initially, it's an arrival technology, it's impacting everyone. So what do all students need to know? And then there's some more work around the AI literacy framework for primary, secondary education, thinking about how do we engage, create, manage, and design with AI. So those are really useful to think about for our future educators. The other thing to think about is how do we assess and interrogate our use of AI, and remembering that there's an information hierarchy, and that remembering that we know our context the best, and the context we provide is going to always be more relevant than the general context of these models that are just trained on data. And so really that's a limitation, but thinking about we as humans, we are very, very important. We need to think about what the AI assistants know and what they don't know to better able to use it. Always review before using anything. And as much as possible, I think there's a research gap and there's a policy gap. So we really need to be doing a lot of research, doing a lot of real-time action research, and navigating these high-stakes use carefully, and coming back to identifying these greatest concerns, opportunities, and needs. So really thinking about the how and the why, thinking about how what we model in our universities and our higher ed becomes a blueprint for future practice, whether they're future teachers, future computer scientists, future leaders. We need to be thinking about how do we prioritize human control, agency, and interpretation. So thinking about what does it mean to be co-designers? We want to not have AI do the thinking for us, but we want to question, we want to remix, we want to iterate, and we want to adapt. Thinking about, again, what AI does well, where does it fall short? So I'm going to kind of move through this next piece. So we have, I've been working with some colleagues to develop the Gen AI Navigator, and I'll just share some examples from this document. I just want to leave some time for questions in case there's any. And just as you're going through this, what kind of tools have you used to think about how we integrate Gen AI into your teaching and learning? It could be from your university, maybe from another organization, but this was our attempt to really make sense of this landscape and be intentional about our use. And I'll share some other references. So this is just a simple reflective guide. It starts with whether I should be using Gen AI, when I'll integrate it, how I will integrate it. And I'll just make a note on like whether I should teach with or about Gen AI in this class. The only way we will know whether we should be using it or not is if we ourselves are using it and we know the limitations and the uses of the tool. So it's like with riding a bicycle. The only way you learn how to ride a bicycle is to get on the bicycle and ride it. So I think that's really important too, is for us ourselves to use it. And the more we use it, the more we see the limitations, the more we understand the opportunities as well. And then we'll be able to better make these decisions. So how does it fit? Does it fit with these course outcomes? So this tool is really a series of heuristic questions to guide, the integration. How will it integrate ethical and societal impacts? Am I prepared to teach the students about it? What kind of teaching do I need to do with my students before they get Gen AI? Or, guide them in the appropriate use. Research is showing that there's a lot of shadow use of Gen AI. So people are using Gen AI without telling people they're using Gen AI. And so how do we, help support the good use of Gen AI? Again, coming back to just because we can, should we? Remembering that times are very fast changing, very complex, very disruptive. Thinking about what are we building for, what systems are we building, and thinking about remembering what makes us most human. And thinking about what types of learning do we want in our schools and our society. So some key considerations are thinking about course learning outcomes, thinking about clear policy, remembering about accessibility, equity, and inclusion, and what the research is showing that even if AI tools are available to all students at the university or in a course, there are still going to be students who could pay for the higher level of tools, and it still creates inequities because those paid tools are so much more powerful than the free tools. These are all things to be aware of, and there's some research out there that's showing the gap. So again, it's highly nuanced decision making. There's always trade-offs, there's always affordances, there's always risks, there's always benefits. We want to balance everything when we're making decisions. This is some work I did with a group of international researchers, and what we did was we analyzed all the literature, and the paper is called Navigating the Ethical and Societal Impacts of Gen AI in Higher Computing Education, so higher education. So here you're going to find hopefully some useful resources for later, but we did three things. We did a literature review, a policy evaluation, and we derived an ethical and societal impacts framework so these three strands. And then we look at everything through the lens of dilemma analysis. So this is going to take, you feel free to look at this after the presentation, but we did a thorough literature review, where these papers come from. We did an analysis of higher education policies that currently exist. These are some themes that have come up in our literature analysis: honesty and deception, equity and access. We talk about policies, and then we derive the framework. So that's beyond this. I'm leaving this with you. But in the end of the paper, we talk about dilemma analysis. And we use this as a framing for thinking about navigating this age of Gen AI. So, for example, on this end, we have complete cognitive offloading versus conscious critical partnership. So should we approach a task with the aim to offload the task, or should we critically evaluate, and when and how and where? So just some considerations we can be asking ourselves as we're engaging in Gen AI. Thinking about when and where we'll integrate Gen AI into our course, these are some questions in that tool, in that reflective tool, to help us support our decision making. Do we introduce Gen AI early, or do we co-weave Gen AI as part of assignment, or later in the course? So these are all questions that can help guide when and how and where we will integrate Gen AI. So there's some list, and so this is the course I'm teaching right now. It's called Harnessing AI for Good, ? And so I am co-teaching it with a philosophy professor, and we're thinking about how AI-driven transformations in health, criminal justice, and education can be ethically governed to maximize human flourishing, guard against overdependence, social disconnection, and ensure a just allocation of resources. So in this course, we are exploring all of these key questions. How do these values, right? Truth, fairness, accountability, autonomy, how do they guide the design and use of AI? What should an AI ethics or policy framework be designed and included? Is regulation even possible in this world? So one of the activities we did in our course, one of the first activities we did was an AI jigsaw activity. So we went all the way back to the Dartmouth Convention, I believe in the 1950s maybe, and we went from the Dartmouth Convention to today, and we had students do different tasks and describe how the AI systems are built and used. We talked about supervised classification, transformer, next token prediction, risk prediction, and we had them integrate it, had them read the Dartmouth Convention, we had them use some of these tools, and then we had them debate: have we reached the vision of what the Dartmouth Convention defined as Gen AI? And so we had a sort of a framing. So this is one of our initial activities. Some professors are using just a common set of expectations, just transparency. So some faculty have used something like this, where they know Gen AI or artificially AI generated and then AI aided, just to be transparent and encourage students to be transparent with how and they're using Gen AI. So another key principle, I would say, is thinking about assessment again, shifting from thinking about product as the assessment to thinking about how do we assess students' process. So this is one thing that we're doing in our class. We're having students, as they go through the class, explain these core paradigms of AI, critically compare these paradigms, analyze societal impacts. So rather than grading just the final project or give them a final test, we're engaging them in all of these discussions and tasks throughout the course so that we can kind of assess the process as well as the product. So some other learning research. Now we also have research objectives as well. So how will we integrate it into our course? Again, from the reflection tool, there's some other questions. Thinking about, how will we design this implementation? If we need to pre-teach to students some things, how will we allocate the time and the resources for them to do it? Pre-teaching is a big thing. Do we need to provide direct instruction and practice time for students to understand and use these tools? Thinking about deciding on the right tool, considering making sure we're addressing higher levels of thinking and evaluating these tools. So not just using them, but evaluating them. How well do they do their job? And so always engaging students at that higher level rather than just passive consuming. Another big piece of my work is in policy, and so I'm just going to share a little bit on some of the policy insights from my recent research that's funded by Google and the Spencer Foundation with the support of ASU. So really thinking about, I've been interviewing policymakers, and some of the themes that have emerged is, there's a big challenge related to the policy vacuum right now. It's really important to have cross-pollination, iterative and dynamic knowledge building, really necessary to emphasize that human well-being and connectedness. Remembering that policymakers are noting that it's really important that with any AI adoption, that values must drive the tech. Remembering to ground everything in the mission, in purpose, equity, grounding it in human connection. So like ASU, you've got principled innovation. So with that in mind, the values are driving our tech. So we have an ethical AI engine. Discernment is the new literacy. Thinking about those that are asking better questions, and not about seeking faster answers. Information is available fast to everybody. It's all about who can ask those better questions that are going to benefit. As part of this, I designed a tool that policymakers could engage in, and through this tool, I educated them regarding Gen AI. So I created a bot within ASU's ecosystem This is our ecosystem called Create AI. And within this AI sandbox, so here's my bot, but there wasn't so much about creating the bot because, again, it's very easy to create a bot anywhere, anytime. But my goal was to really teach them about, how do I build this? I want to teach policymakers about like what were my custom instructions? What happens if I change these instructions? I showed them my knowledge base to prevent, hallucination. I showed them, I uploaded all of this as the knowledge base. So they can see that like I custom created this tool thinking about the behavior. So I showed them under the hood, how is this AI created to demystify it and to empower them to ask better questions about policy and to make better policy. Again, just thinking about transparency from multiple lenses. We want to think about safety, explainability, fairness, accountability, and interpretability. There's transparency through many lenses, and we want to be sure to engage in conversations across our institutions about all of these elements of transparency. Who's going to be responsible for these, if there's mistakes? Are there explanations? Are they understandable to stakeholders, right? What safety measures and precautions were taken? So on and so forth. So really guiding, similar to the ethical and societal impacts framework, thinking about that, what happens when AI is used, underused, overused. And then I've included some additional papers and links to research here. And again, I encourage you later on to maybe explore this ethical and societal impacts framework paper. I think that one might have a lot of relevance. So thinking about this, that disruptions create gaps, they create openings, they create edges. So we're really at this disruptive time. But both of these tools, the incremental changes and creative disruption, are available to us because we are the agents of cultural transformation. So thank you, and feel free to reach out and keep in touch. I'm happy to answer any questions if there's time. Otherwise, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Dr. Janice, for this insightful and stimulating presentation, which is rich with questions, stimulating questions. And as you said, it's not all about looking for quick answers. We need to ask better questions. And these questions are not only the yes-no questions, but they are also the WH questions. It's about when, how, where, what, why. Janice, you have examined how generative AI can be integrated into higher education in a responsible and principled manner, highlighting both its transformative potential and the need for thoughtful implementation. And as you have emphasized, we're still looking for the question, just because we can, should we? I would like just to add, citing from the website, Dr. Janice researches the intersection of computer science education policy and systems change with joint appointments in the Learning Engineering Institute and Mary Lou Fulton College for Teaching and Learning Innovation. Unfortunately, we will postpone questions till the end of this panel. Now, we will move on to the research communications, which will be further enrich and diversify the discussion about generative AI and the implementation of generative AI. Okay, our Now we will move on with the first communication entitled Navigating Artificial Intelligence Ethics in Doctoral Research, PhD Students, Ethical Awareness and Responsible Use, which is going to be presented by Yusuf Shimlali and Nasir Ahwat from University Mohammed First, Oujda. See, Yusuf, the floor is yours. And I guess that this presentation will explore doctoral students' awareness of ethical challenges related to AI and their approaches to responsible use in academic research. Okay, so
Thank
now
you, sir. So good afternoon, everyone. I hope you're doing well. And in this presentation, we talked about navigating AI ethics in doctoral research. So we went in a way that to navigate not only the use and the implications, but we saw it from a different angle. So we will discover it together. So PhD students' ethical awareness and responsible use. So before we look at the data, I want to explain the main idea behind our study. Many researchers focus on how students use AI, but we believe that it's not important to question. What is really matters is whether students are aware of the ethical issues connected to AI use. Our argument is simple. When students understand the ethics, they are more likely to use AI responsibly. That is the central idea we want to test. So AI tools have changed a lot, okay, in recent years. They are no longer new or unusual. They are now regular part of academic work, as you can see in the diagram. Students So as I was saying, they are now a regular part of academic work. As you can see in this diagram, students use AI in three main ways. Number one, which is the idea generation, brainstorming and conceptual mapping. And number two, which is structuring, reorganizing complex information. And for the last part, which is language refinement, as we do in paraphrasing and checking grammatical accuracy. Okay. Moving now to, this is where things become more, a little bit complicated. This diagram on the slide shows a line of spectrum, okay, that goes from safe uses of AI on the left, and on the left, like checking spelling and formatting, to more risky uses on the right, like asking AI to write parts of the research for you. In the middle is what we call the ambiguity zone. Okay, this is the area where it is not clear whether the students or the AI produced the work. So we have a little bit of ambiguity here in this part in the middle. This is okay. Three important problems appear in this zone. First, it becomes hard to know how much of the work truly belongs to the students, and second. Okay, and second, AI can produce false references or wrong information, as Monsieur Bruno Delièvre last year in the conference called hallucinations. Which is serious unreliability problem. And the third, when students rely too much on AI, they may stop thinking critically on their own. So relying too much on AI and using artificial intelligence programs can result in reliability problems, and they may make us stop thinking. Next, now, why did we focus specifically on doctoral students? This diagram shows a simple matrix. The vertical axis represents the level of publishing from low-stakes assignments at the bottom, okay, and to high-stakes academic publishing at the top. The horizontal axis moves from general knowledge learning on the left, okay, to producing original research on the right. Most existing studies about AI and students are placed in the bottom left area. They focus on undergraduate students doing regular assignments, but the doctoral students are in the top right corner. They work independently, so they must produce original ideas, and the stakes here are very high. As Wu and his colleagues shows in 2006 in a study. So in this study, we used the most recent studies in using AI. So from 2000 2025 to 2026. So this study is from 2026. This group has rarely been studied, so this is the gap we wanted to fill in, if we want to say fill. So our study had one clear aim, okay, to understand how PhD students use AI by looking at three different things. Their ethical awareness, okay, how often they use AI and how responsibly they behave. We tested three hypotheses. The first is that students who are more aware of ethical issues and use AI more responsibly. The second, H2, is perhaps surprising a little bit. Okay, we predicted that how often a student uses AI does not predict responsible use. And for the third, H3, is that students who receive clear support and guidance from their institution are more likely to use AI responsibly, which we kind of can say we lack. Together, these three hypotheses help us understand not just what students do, but why they do it. So, to guide our study, we built a theoretical model that combines three well-known theories. You can see for this first stage on the left is about adoption. Why do students start using AI in the first place? This comes from the technology acceptance model, which focuses on how useful and easy to use a tool is. The second stage is in the middle, the most important one of our study, and it is ethical awareness. Ethical awareness. This study is where the students evaluate the tool and thinks about issues like plagiarism, bias, and reliability. And the third stage, which is the final one, it looks at how attitudes, social norms, and self-control lead to responsible behavior. The key message at the bottom, okay, we have here AI use, then ethical awareness leads automatically, if we can say, to responsible behavior. Moving now to explaining how we collected and analyzed the data. As you can see, the slide is divided into four parts. In terms of design, we used a quantitative survey given at one point in time. Our sample was 46 PhD students from different academic fields in our faculty. The survey had 37 questions using a scale of from 1 to 5, and it measured all the three parts of our theoretical model. We also checked the reliability of this survey using Cronbach's alpha. Okay, this is a method that we use to test the reliability of the questionnaire. For the analysis, we used the Pearson correlation to look at the relationships between variables and multiple regression to test which focus factors best predicted responsible use. Now, let us look at the results. The first finding is very clear, okay, which is the use in academic writing, mostly daily or weekly, as shown in the circle. And most of them use it daily or weekly, as I said, so AI is already a normal part of doctoral work. The table on the right shows the average scores of our four main constructs. Ethical awareness scored 4.58 out of 5. Responsible use scored even higher at 4.78. Ethical judgment was at 4.35, but look at the institutional context at the bottom. This lower score is important. It tells us that universities are not giving students enough clear guidance about how to use AI responsibly. Now this slide shows the most important finding of the study. The diagram has three predictors on the left and one outcome on the right. Responsible use, the large gold arrow from from ethical awareness is strong and statistically significant, with beta value of 0.58 and the p-value below 0.001. This confirms H1. Ethical awareness clearly predicts responsible behavior. The second arrow from AI to use frequency is crossed out. The beta value is only 0.02. And this is not significant at all. This confirms H2. How often you use AI has no real connection to how responsibly you use it. Third arrow from institutional context is shown as a dashed line at the bottom. So this is a moderate correlation of 0.30, but in the regression model it was not independently significant. So H3 is only partially supported. Now, moving to what does this mean in practice. So let kind of analysis, what does this mean in practice. So the Venn diagram here shows two circles. On the left is the operational efficiency and the benefit of using AI to work faster and more easily. On the right is the scholarly responsibility. The need to maintain academic honesty and original thinking. These two things are sometimes seen as opposites, but the golden area in the middle shows that they can meet through what we call contextual judgment. The message in the box at the bottom is very clear. Using AI often does not mean using it badly. A student can use AI every day and still be responsible as long as they think critically about what they are doing. The ethical problem is not in the tool itself, but it's in the how we use it and how we use it and apply it. These findings has direct consequences of how your universities respond to AI. This slide compares two approaches. Okay, on the left side is the traditional assumption that universities should limit how students use AI and measure frequency of use and treat more AI use as a sign of higher risk. On the right side, the evidence-based approach that our data supports universities should focus on teaching students how to think critically about AI, measure the quality of their judgment, and understand that ethical awareness, not frequency, drives responsible behavior. The arrow in the between, the two columns represents the shift we are recommending. It is not about using AI less, it is about using it in a better way. So for those who want to look at the core literature we relied on in this study, so this is the studies from, as I mentioned earlier, 2025, 2026. So the most recent studies that have been done in this topic. So thank you very much for listening. So if you have any questions or comments, I will be grateful to answer them. Thank you very much.
Yusuf, for highlighting and for saving 2 minutes first, and for highlighting such crucial aspects of academic practice, namely ethical awareness in the use of AI. And bearing in mind that ethical awareness is one of the pillars of AI literacy. Okay, you highlighted the blurry line between assistance and authorship, and you try to analyze the ethical awareness, frequency of responsible use, and ethical judgment. Now we move ahead with the second presenter, which is online. It is entitled The Algorithmic Divide, a comparative analysis of epistemic bias and equity in generative AI mediated transversal skills. The presentation will be delivered by Taha Hajar, Sarah Al-Muhsin, Shayma Aberkan from University Muhammad II Casablanca and University Muhammad I Wajda respectively. So are you here?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes. Okay, welcome.
All right. Thank you so much.
Now, again, the virtual floor is for you, Ms. Hajar.
All right. Thank you so much.
You have 15 minutes.
Yes. So before we begin, I would like to start by thanking the organizers for bringing us together today. And before we dive into our presentation, I would like to start with a question for everyone watching. When you use generative AI to refine your thoughts, whose voice are you actually using? On behalf of our team, we are here to discuss the silicon mirror. We argue that generative AI isn't just a productivity tool, it's a reflection, and a distorted one. Why? Because it reflects biases, the language, and the logic of a very specific dominant part of the world. In this session, we're going to show you why this creates an algorithmic divide. We'll explore how generative AI mediated skills like critical thinking and communication are becoming a new state of equality where diversity is being corrected out of existence or simply erased. So technically, we aren't just looking at how we use AI, we are looking at who is being left behind by its reflection. So I invite you all to dive in. Take a look at this progression over here. For decades, we've discussed the digital divide as a problem of hardware, the era of excess. The era of excess you see on the left, but in 2026, we moved beyond this. We moved into a gap that has evolved throughout the years. We've entered the age of algorithmic gatekeeping. This middle box that I hope that you can see on the screen, the middle blue box over there is where the mirror starts to distort. Generative AI isn't just a neutral tool. It's an epistemic filter, as you can see from the picture over there or the symbol. It decides which ways of thinking are correct and which one are simply noise. This leads us to the final stage, which is the algorithmic divide, which marks the era of outcome. And here the stakes are incredibly high because it's no longer enough to give a student or a worker access to an LLM. If the AI's internal logic is biased towards a Western neoliberal standard of competence, it will automatically and naturally favor those who already fit that mold. So technically speaking, we aren't just seeing a gap in tools, we are also witnessing a gap in whose knowledge is allowed to exist in a professional space. If equity was once about a seat in a table, or at the table, today it's about whose language and logic are used to set the menu and are considered as the global universalized standard. So one thing that we need to be clear about is what is at stake when we talk about transversal skills. These transversal skills aren't just workplace competencies like critical thinking and communication. They are also historically autonomous human practices. They have always been rooted in diverse and complex and multifaceted cultural and communal traditions. However, as you see in the center of the slide, these skills are now increasingly mediated through generative interfaces. And this meditation introduces the epistemic bias that we mentioned earlier, and which you see on the right. When we delegate our judgment to a model, we aren't just getting an efficiency boost, but we are engaging in cognitive offloading. The danger here is what we've we've identified and defined as heuristic mediation. The AI normalizes a very specific, very narrow, singular rhetoric style as the universal default. Essentially, we are currently witnessing a homogenization of thought. We are taking a word of diverse, complex, vibrant epistemologies and completely flattening them into one single algorithmically validated mode. The generative AI filter doesn't just refine our skills, it reframes what competence itself looks like, leaving little room for anyone or for any person who doesn't have or doesn't mirror the model's training data. We now move to the theoretical core of our research. We've applied Miranda Ficker's 2007 framework of epistemic injustice to the actual life cycle of large language models. As you can see on the left, injustice isn't just an accident at the end. It is built in it's built in and constructed from the moment biased corpora or input enters the system during data collection. By the time we reach fine-tuning and deployment, we are looking at epistemic erasure at scale. We break this down into two specific injustices. First, testimonial injustice. This is where the model amplifies dominant narratives while algorithmically discrediting underrepresented voices. As we put it here, the system doesn't silence, it simply never learned to listen. If your rhetorical style doesn't match the pre-trained norm, the model treats it and treats your input as lower quality or simply incorrect. The second framework or the second dimension is hermeneutical justice. This is even more profound. It's the gap in the model's collective understanding. Indigenous ontologies and non-Western moral frameworks are often outside models of the principle and the standardized model of the interpretive range. That's why they are rendered illegible. As you can see, the slide states what the model cannot name, it cannot know. So, if the life cycle we just discussed is the how, this slide represents the what. We argue that we collectively, me and my colleagues, we argue that generative AI does not assist expression, it actually adjudicates it, it reframes it, it molds it. Look at the funnel graphic on the right. When we use generative AI to mediate our soft skills, we aren't just getting a grammar check. We are passing our unique, diverse human expression through an AI-mediated filter. This filter is programmed with algorithmic heuristics that favor specific Western rhetorical norms. So, what happens to the ideas that don't fit? As the graphic shows, they are filtered out. This creates a dangerous incentive for the user. In high-stakes contexts, like applying, for example, for a job or writing an academic paper, users are incentivized to perform conformity rather than communicative authenticity. We call this epistemic self-erasure. You know, because users are pushed, they are incentivized by the models to imitate or to attempt to emulate the standardized general model. People stop trying to be original because they know the probability curve of the model simply will not validate this authenticity or originality. Essentially, as our final quote in this slide suggests, soft skills are no longer practiced, they are passed or failed. We are outsourcing our epistemic agency to a black box. And in so doing, we are narrowing the very definition of what should be considered as an epistemology per se. Let's take a look here at a concrete example of this mirror, the silicon mirror, in action. On the left, we have an authentic voice. Look at the phrasing. The rhythm of our speech carries the weight of generations. This isn't just a different way of speaking. It's a different way of knowing. It's rhythm as epistemology. It's embodied. But look what happens when it passes. When it passes through LLM processing in the center. Through probability optimization, the system corrects this voice which is deemed by the system as incorrect, illegible, or invalid, is corrected. On the right, we see the sanitized output. It becomes, how it becomes? This phenomenon has been recognized prior to empirical validation. Notice what was lost here. The neutralized register hasn't just improved the grammar, it has completely stripped away the communal syntax and the regional rhetoric. It has turned a living, breathing testimony into an abstracted, decontextualized academic strain. As we've noted at the bottom of the slide, AI does not merely correct language, it systematically erases the epistemology embedded within it. When we force everyone into this standard English mold to appear competent, we are participating and we are further promoting a global linguistic hegemony that renders non-Western traditions as illegible or completely invalid. Let's take a look at a concrete example of this mirror. We have an authentic voice that has been completely flattened out and completely erased, all right? But moving from language to logic, we have to look at how generative AI shapes also our critical thinking. This graph, the previous graph, illustrated what we called cognitive flattening. Large language models operating on a probability distribution. The peak of the curve, as you can see, the peak of the curve represents the most probable safe and standard output. On the marginalized edges, we find the diverse epistemologies and alternative logics that don't fit into the statistical majority. And here is the danger. In high-pressure professional academic environments, like we mentioned earlier, users are pushed and incentivized to align their reasoning with that center peak. Why? Simply because the model validates the peak and discourages the edges. When we delegate our judgment to this curve, we aren't just saving time, we are statistically suppressing divergent ways of knowing. And this leads us to another vital question. When the model thinks for us, do we still think for ourselves? Now, we collectively as researchers, we argue that the model's embedded neoliberal rationality is masquerading as neutral intelligence, while in reality, it is performing a progressive narrowing of human reasoning. So we aren't just losing different voices, we are losing different epistemologies and different abilities to express one's own views and one's own reasoning.
Sorry to interrupt you. You have just 2 minutes left.
All right, thank you so much. So far, we have spent this presentation deconstructing the silicon mirror, but we want to conclude by looking toward a solution. As we state here, equity demands more than correction, it demands reimagination. We cannot simply patch bias. We have to reconstruct the relationship between marginalized knowledge and algorithmic systems. We propose a 5-pillar framework, as you can see from the slide, for algorithmic equity. First, we need pluralistic data co-creation. This means moving away from scraping the web for dominant narrative and instead engaging in participatory processes with marginalized communities to build diverse training corpora. Second, we advocate for data sovereignty frameworks. Communities must therefore have the right to govern their own cultural and epistemic representation. This leads to epistemic transparency, in which we need to audit tools that don't just look for statistical fairness, but specifically expose the embedded assumptions in trading data. Finally, our governance models must be participatory, inclusive. They must include voices from the global south, from the global north, and neurodiverse communities to oversee model alignment. We need bias auditing that uses an epistemic lens, incorporating the testimonials and justice indicators we discussed previously. That's it. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you, Hajar. Thank you, Hajar, for the implications and the recommendations that you finished with. We are still encroaching deeper into ethical considerations, and now with Hajar, we are talking about, or we've talked about algorithmic bias and issues of inequality, equity. You highlighted some big words and debatable concepts such as gatekeepers and who controls what. And you also talked about moving from fostering transversal skills into... As I said, that you've moved from the idea of fostering transversal skills into reframing, or maybe in the future killing these transversal skills. You also highlighted how generative artificial intelligence may both reinforce and challenge epistemic inequalities, particularly in the development of transversal or in reframing, as you've said, of transversal skills. Now we move ahead with another communication, and this one is we are with Aya Dadi and Professor Nasir Ahwat. Okay, the fourth communication is entitled "From Thinking to Prompting the Transformation." From thinking to prompting the transformation of cognitive effort in the generative artificial intelligence classroom. Now, I'd just like to mention that Aya Dadi is also from University Mohammed First, Oujda. So please proceed.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for the warm welcome. So I would like to start by thanking the organizing committee, the scientific committee, and the laboratory for the quality of this event and for their support. So today, artificial intelligence, especially generative AI, reshapes or changes how we think and how we learn. So it is shifting the focus from producing ideas to actually He's trust me. Sorry. Okay, so in this context, my presentation from thinking to prompting, the transformation of cognitive effort in the generative AI classroom, explores how the shift is reshaping students' cognitive effort and learning processes. So the outline goes as follows. We have the introduction, AI and learning, theoretical and pedagogical perspectives, research findings and practical implications, and conclusion. So let's first start with the theoretical foundations. Let's start with the cognitive load theory by John Swiller in 1988. So here we have a brain, and we have the intrinsic cognitive load, we have germane cognitive load, and extraneous cognitive load. So this theory explains as a process of managing limited mental capacity, that when students receive information, it is processed in a working memory, which can easily become overloaded. So the process goes or involves three types, as I already mentioned. We have the intrinsic load, which comes from the difficulty of the task. We have extraneous cognitive load, which comes from the way information is presented, and germane cognitive load, which represents the mental effort used to grasp the information. So, however, this model assumes that cognitive effort is something to be carefully optimized, not eliminated. But when we are integrating generative AI in this context, it becomes a little bit problematic. Why? So generative AI tools are designed to reduce effort, to simplify tasks, to generate IDs, to write at your place. So this may reduce intrinsic and extraneous cognitive load. It also risks reducing germane load, which is the very effort required for deep learning. So in this sense, AI does not just support cognitive load theory, but it may actually limit it. Why? Because it removes so much cognitive effort and it disrupts the balance the theory is trying to, the theory depends on. So instead of managing cognitive load, we may be bypassing it. The second model is cognitive model of the writing process by Flower and Hayes in 1986. So this model represents the writing process of the long-term memory. So we have knowledge of the topic, knowledge of audience, and stored writing plans. So this is where thinking starts, and the writer decides what to say. Then we move to translating. In this part of translating, we turn ideas into sentences, and this is the actual writing. This is putting thoughts into words. The third one is reviewing. We have reading and editing, and this is where the writer improves and reflects on his own work. It is important to note that the process of writing is not linear, so the writer can go back and forth constantly to fix what needs to be fixed. I generated this picture, I have this picture generated by AI, which shows the evolution of writing tools over time. So moving from left to right, we have first the paper and pen. In this era, writing was manually. So when writing was manually, it's the learner or the student that does everything. Then we have the word processors. In the word processors, the tools like Microsoft Word, for example, they help with formatting, editing, and saving. It still requires thinking, but it just helps with the editing and formatting. Then we have the online writing aids. So the online writing aids, such as Grammarly or Quirlbot, they are used mainly to paraphrase or refine the work. So it supports the writer, but it doesn't replace him. And then we move to generative AI writers, so such as ChatGPT. In this era of generative AI, it's the machine that does most of the job, and it's the machine that replaces the human mind. This is an experiment that I would like to talk about. It was done in Boston. So it's the cognitive cost of using LLMS. As we can see here, these are two brain scans of a ChatGPT user and a non-ChatGPT user. So this experiment was done in Boston by a teacher, and the activity included 54 students. They were found that those who regularly rely on AI, some parts of their brain were completely deactivated, and for the others who were non-ChatGPT users, you can clearly see that they are parts of their brains that are activated and they work. They also noticed that students who started working without AI and shifted to AI, they had really great results, but the other way around was a bit challenging. We cannot deny that AI or generative AI also has pedagogical implications. So AI in education, of course, it offers valuable support, okay? And it also brings risks such as overdependence and integrity concerns. So AI can be used as a support tool, not a cognitive substitute. And we just need to redesign assessment, foster AI literacy and critical use, and students should strengthen metacognitive competencies. Moving on to the research problem. So to what extent does the use of generative AI in the classroom shift students from active thinking to passive prompting? And how does this transformation affect their cognitive effort, critical thinking, and learning outcomes? So the methodology of this study, I used a perception-based study. Participants were 29 students from the Faculty of Letters and Human Sciences. They were mixed BA master students and PhD students. For the data collection, I used a questionnaire or written reflections. So it focused more on the students' perceptions of AI use in writing, and also in the comparison of writing with AI and writing without AI. So concerning the findings of this study, first of all, we have Likert scale questions about perceptions of AI use. So as you can see, the majority of the participants are doctoral students, and students were from different fields. The first question, how often do you use AI tools for academic tasks? So 86.2% said very often, which means they depend on AI in their daily lives. Only 30.8% that said rarely, but there was never a color that highlights someone who never uses AI. Also, when I asked them about completing writing tasks more quickly, 55.2% strongly agreed, and only 6.9% who disagreed on the fact that AI can help them write more quickly. So about spending time thinking or when using AI tools, 48.3% strongly agreed that they spend less time thinking when using AI tools, and only 20.7% disagreed. To generate ideas for writing, so 41.4% strongly agreed on using AI mainly just for writing or generate ideas in their place, and only 6.9% who strongly disagreed, which means that they don't rely on AI at all to generate ideas for them. So using AI tools reduces the effort I put into developing my own arguments. 41.4% strongly agreed, and only 10.3% disagreed. AI tools improve the organization and structure of my writing. So here, 51.7% strongly agreed, and 41.4% agreed also. So using AI tools mainly to refine or edit work rather than create it, 37.9% agreed, sorry, and 20.7% strongly agreed, and only 30.8% disagreed. I spent more time revising AI-generated content than generating ideas myself. Here, there was kind of a balance between those who agreed and those who disagreed. So feeling less engaged when using AI tools. Also, we have here the majority agreed or strongly agreed. I sometimes accept AI-generated answers without critically evaluating them. Here we have a balance, a kind of a balance. So the half of the students said that they strongly disagree, and half said they strongly agree. Now let's move to the reflective questions on the use of AI. So the first question was, in your own words, how does using AI tools affect your thinking process when writing academic texts? So overall, students' perceptions or students' responses show a mixed impact. Some see AI as a helpful tool for organizing ideas and saving time, while others use it as a thinking partner to reflect and develop their writing. However, there are also some concerns. Some students felt like they rely on AI too much, and they don't rely on their minds. And finally, only few students who claimed neutral or no use at all. The second reflective question: what differences do you notice between writing with AI tools and writing without it? So students highlighted clear difference between writing with or without AI. With AI, writing becomes faster, more structured, more polished, and often higher in quality. However, it can reduce the cognitive effort, the originality, and the personal voice. Do you think AI tools improve or reduce your learning and cognitive effort? So here, students said, overall, most students perceive that AI reduces their cognitive efforts. Many reported becoming dependent on it, which can limit critical thinking and creativity and originality. And however, some believe that when used in a balanced way, AI can serve as a tool to help them create in collaboration with their own voice. Concerning the analysis, so the dominant perception is that AI reduces cognitive effort, often leading to more passive learning, where students feel that AI thinks for them or AI thinks in their place. So this can create dependency on AI. It can weaken critical thinking and creativity. Concerning the recommendations, so the recommendations were to promote active and critical use of AI, develop AI literacy skills, provide clear AI use guidelines, reinforce independent learning and confidence. And I'd like to finish my presentation by saying a quote, which is, if you can do it without AI, don't do it with AI. And thank you very much for your time.
Thank you both, Dadi and Professor Houet, for this significant and insightful study about the writing skills. Okay, you invited us to reconsider how generative artificial intelligence may be reshaping cognitive processes and learning strategies in education context, and you took the writing skills as a focus. So with AI, we are moving from, and it's not all about reducing the cognitive load, but it's also about moving from following the specific steps and stages in writing, in academic writing, to over-reliance, and therefore to the deterioration of sub-skills related to the task of writing. Now I would like to be heard. Now we move to I guess the last one. You are Asma Limi?
Oui.
Asma. So we move to the last presentation, which is going to be delivered by Asma Limi, Halima Sarsi, and Samia Tamani, Nofal Roqi. They are all from University Hassan First Stats, and the presentation is entitled AI-based personalized learning strategies for autistic primary school students, a systematic review of approaches and personalization mechanisms. Now the podium is yours, Miss.
Merci. Alors bonjour tout le monde. Je suis Asma Limi, doctorante monitrice en première année à l'université Hassan Ier à stage. Donc notre travail s'articule autour des stratégies d'apprentissage personnalisées basées sur l'IA pour les élèves autistes, une revue systématique des approches et des mécanismes de personnalisation. Aujourd'hui, dans l'éducation, la question qui se pose, tous les élèves apprennent-ils de la même manière? Donc aujourd'hui, dans une salle de classe, on sait tout le monde que certains élèves avancent rapidement, tandis que d'autres ont besoin d'un accompagnement adapté. Cette question met en évidence un constat important, celle de la diversité des profils d'apprenants selon les besoins et les rythmes de ces apprenants. Cependant, les approches pédagogiques restent souvent standardisées, ce qui limite la prise en considération de ces besoins ou ces rythmes. Alors, le développement de l'intelligence artificielle ouvre de nouvelles opportunités et perspectives de personnalisation des apprentissages. Cette réflexion s'inscrit dans l'éducation à l'ère générative et dans l'axe de l'accessibilité et l'inclusion. Afin de structurer notre travail, donc je vais commencer premièrement par présenter le contexte et la problématique de cette revue, ainsi que l'objectif et la méthodologie adoptée. Par la suite, je vais vous présenter les résultats avant de passer aux limites et perspectives de l'étude. Donc, dans le contexte de la diversification des profils d'apprenants, on doit s'intéresser notamment aux apprenants à besoins spécifiques. Donc, c'est le cas pour notre étude, c'est les apprenants ayant un trouble de spectre de l'autisme. Donc, le TCA est un trouble neurodéveloppemental qui se caractérise par des difficultés pour la communication, l'interaction sociale et des comportements répétitifs. Donc, les apprenants ayant un TCA se caractérisent par une forte hétérogénéité des profils et des besoins éducatifs. Face à cette diversité, l'éducation inclusive vise la participation et la réussite de tous les élèves. En effet, les fondements des usages numériques éducatifs, notamment en matière de personnalisation, d'apprentissage et d'intelligence artificielle, se construisent dès le premier niveau de scolarisation. C'est pour ça qu'on doit mieux préparer les élèves de le niveau primaire jusqu'à l'université pour qu'ils s'adaptent avec les autres apprenants. Par ailleurs, le primaire est une étape clé pour le développement cognitif et socio-émotionnel. Malgré que les pratiques pédagogiques restent standardisées, qu'on a déjà dit qu'ils ne prennent pas en considération les besoins et les rythmes de tous les apprenants, l'intelligence artificielle apparaît comme une solution face à ces limites. Donc, il permet d'ajuster dynamiquement la trajectoire d'apprentissage en fonction des besoins et de rythme de chaque apprenant. Deuxièmement, il offre un feedback personnalisé, donc selon la performance de chaque apprenant, et il permet une adaptation aux performances de l'apprenant pour soutenir sa progression. Donc l'IA s'ajuste tout le temps en fonction des réponses de l'apprenant pour soutenir sa progression et pour qu'il s'améliore dans leur apprentissage. Mais malgré ces avantages offerts par l'IA, donc on observe une limite dans les études. Donc premièrement, en termes de multiplicité des approches d'IA appliquées au TCA, sans une vision claire. Donc on trouve que les études ne structurent pas bien ces approches par des catégories pour qu'on les comprenne. Deuxièmement, des objectifs pédagogiques hétérogènes. Et troisièmement, une méthodologie souvent exploratoire. Et dernièrement, absence de synthèse structurée des mécanismes et de personnalisation. Donc la question qui se pose est quelles sont les stratégies d'apprentissage personnalisées basées sur l'IA pour les élèves autistes au primaire et comment peuvent-elles être analysées en termes de mécanismes de personnalisation, d'objectifs pédagogiques et de solidité méthodologique. Donc pour répondre à cette question, on vise l'atteinte de ces objectifs. Premièrement, classifier les stratégies d'apprentissage personnalisées basées sur l'IA. Deuxièmement, identifier les mécanismes de personnalisation. Troisièmement, analyse les objectifs pédagogiques. Et dernièrement, évaluer la solidité méthodologique des études. Donc, pour atteindre ces objectifs, une revue systématique a été réalisée conformément aux recommandations Prisma en février 2026. Donc, la recherche a été faite dans 6 bases de données, par exemple Scopus, Web of Science et Sciences Directes, couvre les études entre 2015 et 2026 sur les dimensions suivantes, donc l'autisme, l'apprentissage personnalisé, l'intelligence artificielle et l'éducation primaire inclusive. Finalement, les données ont été gérées à l'aide de Zotero après un processus de suppression des données et de criblage de titres de résumé et de textes. Afin de garantir la pertinence, on a défini à l'avance des critères d'inclusion et d'exclusion. Donc, concernant les critères d'inclusion, on a inclus juste les études empiriques du dispositif pédagogique qui testent une idée et les publications rédigées en anglais entre 2015 et 2026, ainsi que les études portent sur les participants ayant TCA et qui présentent une composante d'IA et une forme de personnalisation. Concernant les critères d'exclusion, donc on a exclu les études centrées uniquement sur le diagnostic clinique et qui sont réalisées en dehors de cadre éducatif et qui ne présentent pas un modèle d'IA ou là, une forme de personnalisation. Donc, concernant le processus de sélection de données, on a suivi le processus standard de Prisma. Donc, lors de la phase d'identification, on a identifié 123 articles. Lors de la phase de sélection, donc on a sélectionné 119 après suppression des doublons, et 34 après lecture des titres et 17 après lecture des résumés. Donc, 17 articles ont été évalués lors de la phase de l'éligibilité. Et finalement, on a retenu 10 études. Donc, ces 10 études, donc, on a extrait les données générales en relation avec les types d'IA utilisés, les mécanismes de personnalisation ainsi que les objectifs pédagogiques. Donc, on a fait une analyse comparative des études et un regroupement par catégorie d'IA et on a identifié les tendances générales en relation avec ce qui est le plus fait dans ces études. Donc, on passe pour présenter les résultats. Donc, l'analyse de résultats nous permet d'identifier les typologies d'approche d'IA. Donc, on a l'apprentissage par renforcement, le système qui apprend grâce aux réponses de l'apprenant, et l'IA affective qui s'intéresse aux émotions de l'apprenant, et l'IA générative qui génère les explications et les consignes, et l'IA vocale qui s'intéresse à la voix de l'apprenant, donc soit parler, soit écouter, et l'IA immersive, donc l'intégration de la réalité augmentée, et finalement l'IA adaptative cognitive qui s'intéresse au niveau cognitif de l'apprenant. Concernant les mécanismes de personnalisation, donc on a une personnalisation selon les performances. Donc on voit les réponses de l'apprenant pour qu'on adapte l'apprentissage selon leur niveau. Et deuxièmement, personnalisation affective. Donc on voit si l'apprenant est stressé ou frustré pour adapter l'exercice selon son état émotionnel. Et troisièmement, une personnalisation vocale. Donc ici, par exemple, si l'apprenant dit qu'il n'a pas compris, le système reformule la question, adapte l'exercice selon leur niveau. Et une personnalisation multimodale, donc le système ici travaille avec des dimensions, par exemple, cognitives et émotionnelles, donc plusieurs modes. Et finalement, personnalisation basée sur le profil cognitif, donc par exemple, les apprenants qui apprennent vite, on donne des exercices avancés, tandis que qui ont des difficultés, on donne des exercices simples. Et concernant les objectifs pédagogiques ciblés, donc les études visent le développement des compétences socio-émotionnelles, donc la capacité à gérer ses émotions, à interagir avec les autres. Deuxièmement, les compétences cognitives et académiques, donc tout ce qui est en relation avec l'apprentissage scolaire. Troisièmement, le développement de l'engagement et la régulation émotionnelle, donc l'apprenant doit être motivé et a la capacité de gérer ses émotions. Et dernièrement, le développement de communication et langage, de communiquer avec les autres, répondre à des questions. Donc l'analyse des études a également porté sur leur solidité méthodologique. Donc premièrement, taille d'échantillon réduite. Deuxièmement, des études exploratoires ou pilotes. Troisièmement, peu de groupes contrôle. Et quatrièmement, une hétérogénéité des méthodologies. Donc l'analyse de résultats. Donc, les synthèses et le résultat est mis en évidence ces 3 points. Donc, la première chose, c'est qu'on a différentes approches basées sur l'IA qu'on peut utiliser avec les apprenants ayant un TCA. Et deuxièmement, une personnalisation basée sur la performance et les émotions. C'est que la personnalisation doit être faite en fonction de performance et du résultat de l'apprenant, même que ses émotions. Et dernièrement, on doit viser le développement de tout ce qui est socio-émotionnel et cognitif, et non pas seulement cognitif. Passons maintenant aux limites de mon étude. Donc, faible taille d'échantillon. Donc, la majorité des études se basent sur une petite taille d'échantillon. Manque de groupe contrôle. Donc, ils n'ont pas réalisé une expérience pour mesurer exactement est-ce que les approches basées sur l'IA ont un effet positif par rapport à les approches traditionnelles, et des caractères exploratoires des études. Donc, ils testent seulement l'idée pour une première fois, et manque d'études longitudinales. Donc, ils n'ont pas fait l'étude sur une grande durée. Et dernièrement, faible intégration multidimensionnelle. Donc, pour conclure, on peut noter les points suivants. Cette revue systématique a mis en évidence un champ en expansion et diversification d'approches d'IA, et que la personnalisation doit être basée sur la performance et sur les émotions, malgré quelques limites méthodologiques comme faible taille d'échantillon et l'absence de groupe contrôle, et une faible intégration dans notre contexte, le contexte du primaire. Mais on peut dire que l'intelligence artificielle présente un fort potentiel pour l'inclusion inclusive. Donc, en perspective, on doit développer des études longitudinales, ainsi que renforcer les designs expérimentaux par un groupe contrôle et un groupe témoin, et l'intégration de tout ce qui est multidimensionnel, l'aspect cognitif, émotionnel et contextuel, et on doit l'adapter à notre contexte, et on doit prendre en compte les aspects éthiques personnels de l'apprenant, ainsi que assurer un bon enseignement, sachant qu'au Maroc, il n'existe pas une étude qui estime le nombre de TCA. Donc, il faut utiliser l'intelligence artificielle pour proposer une solution personnalisée et pour favoriser une éducation inclusive efficace. Et donc, voilà les références, et merci pour votre attention.
Thank you again for your attention. Still, this study is about addresses the role of AI in fostering not general education but inclusive education. And now we are talking about not only the transformative promises but also the limits and pitfalls of AI and the use of AI for inclusive education. Now, and she mainly focused on supporting learners with specific educational needs. Thank you all presenters and audience. Now we will open the floor for the questions and discussion. Just be concise and indicate who you are asking, okay, which speaker you are addressing, okay. I'd just like to remind you that both of Janice and Hajar are online, so you can also address your questions to both of Janice and Hajar in addition to the presenters. Now, since you are on my left and you are on my right, so let's start with Aya. Now, what do you think about how could we overcome the limits, the pitfalls, or dangers of over-reliance? Okay, when it concerning the use of AI-powered tools to assist us or to write for us.
Okay, so the problem of over-reliance on AI, we've been discussing this since yesterday. So the problem of over-relying on AI is mainly because AI provides good texts, it reduces time, it reduces effort, but if we want to rely on ourselves instead, we should think of the ethical aspects or the academic integrity. So, for example, if I prepare a thesis with my own words, it's not the same as preparing it with the use of AI. So preparing a thesis with my own word, I know what I wrote. So if ever, for example, I'm presenting, I can know how to answer and I can know what I wrote myself. But if it's a product of AI, then it's a problem. I can block if, for example, someone asks me. So what we can do to reduce the help of AI, why not have some guidelines? For example, we can have trainings in for example, schools or faculties about what are the limits that we can not surpass in order to use AI. We can, for example, use it only to refine our work, not the main tool that can generate our work for us. We can also use it to correct mistakes. So we can use it for brainstorming. I guess it's all about having the will. It's about having the will to work on your own and have your own words instead of relying on a machine to give you already made content. Thank you.
Yeah, another question for you too, and I guess it's not a personal question. No, why? Since we are here, we have been talking about higher education. Why autistic primary school students?
Donc, comme je présente pour la communication, j'ai déjà dit que l'éducation par les technologies éducatives ou l'intelligence artificielle doit être réalisée dès le premier niveau de scolarisation, c'est-à-dire dès le primaire, parce qu'on ne trouve pas une étude qui s'intéresse à l'apprentissage de ces apprenants dès le primaire jusqu'à collège, université. Donc c'est pour ça que je me suis dit, moi et l'équipe, donc pourquoi on ne s'intéresse pas au premier niveau, puisque c'est l'étape clé qu'on a décidé de s'intéresser au primary school au niveau primaire. Par la suite, parce que les apprenants autistes trouvent beaucoup de difficultés pour s'engager avec les autres étudiants normaux. C'est pour ça qu'on doit s'intéresser à leur apprentissage pour que l'apprenant autiste s'adapte avec les autres apprenants et se développent dans leur apprentissage de façon normale. Parce que si on parle de l'université, mais on ne trouve pas des études qui parlent comment on peut enseigner à travers l'IA dès le primaire. Donc, c'est pour ça qu'on a s'intéressé au primary school, au premier niveau, scolarisation de ces apprenants.
Thank you. Have you got any questions? No questions, meaning that we are going to end up this session. I would like to extend my sincere thanks and gratitude to all of you, okay, speakers and audience, for your valuable contributions. I will say again, thank you for your attention, and let's call it a day. Okay.